Hello, welcome.
Hello, hello. A very warm welcome to everyone. This is the Stream of Truth. I am known by many names. One of them is Dr. Tassel Faith Shamebrook.
Um, and I'm Sean Kelly.
And today we are continuing our topics around twin flame, divine union. And today's particular topic is how we can see a divine union as two divine unions together.
Yeah, yeah.
And I just want to also mention that we have a really exciting free gathering this Thursday, March 10th at 8 p.m. Eastern, where we're coming together to talk more about twin flame divine union, to support each other, to share some experiences, and just really get to know each other. And there's a registration link for this gathering in the episode description. We hope you will come. So many people have already registered for it, and we're very excited.
Yeah, it'll be fun. And actually, Tassel will be here. So we'll be doing it together.
Yes.
Yeah, so that'll be good.
We'll be in the same place, which will be really fun. So maybe I'll just preface this discussion with Sean and I have been moving through a lot of different, I would say, initiations into our partnership. And there's been some wobbles, I would say. And a lot of it's been really challenging and painful. But I think through it, we've been able to see maybe what true partnership looks like with each other, and maybe what true partnership looks like with ourselves, which is where we really have to start.
Yeah. So I did a video probably a year ago or something on why we created duality. And it's a really good actually intro to kind of some of the stuff we're talking about today that I didn't realize until this morning. But essentially, I think we've talked about before that our partners show us aspects of ourselves that we're usually looking to heal, right, in some way. And basically that's usually the cause for such a deep attraction when that sort of when that energy is harmonized in this sort of balanced opposite polarity in a way. So like, for example, if your partner is really outgoing and you're more reserved, or let's say your partner is much more vocal with their truth, and you're more inclined to just not so much rock the boat or whatever. So at first that trait is going to seem very probably admirable, and sort of like it's going to be one of the shining things that draws you to them. And then it starts to be like, well, why do they always have to do the truth, right? And that type of thing. It might sound like I'm talking about Tassel and I here, but I'm not actually. With Tassel, I was already at a place where I really appreciated the truth, so I didn't have this type of thing as much. But the I'm just using this as an example. But there's sort of this eventual, like, it starts to sting because they're doing something that is something that we don't really accept in ourselves, and it can be anything. It can be anything. So it can be like these type of traits or characteristics, but it can also be different behaviors or different ways of showing up. And then when we get triggered, we are basically called to look at ourselves and try to figure out what about this situation has upset me. Why has it triggered me? And usually what we'll find is that there was something in our childhood or in the past somewhere, perhaps past lives, that has influenced how we sort of perceive these types of things. And that's basically one of the entire draws is to be able to do that work. So if we're not interested in doing that work, it's gonna just be pretty hard, pretty hard if we're not aware that that's kind of how things are shaping out to be.
Yeah,
And
I would
yeah,
say it's very easy to, when we're in a challenging situation with our partner, to blame the partner or blame the relationship. Um, it's so easy to do that. And I think before I was in this sort of relationship, that's what I probably did do. Like for instance, with my ex-husband, I think I was more apt to blame him, blame the relationship, rather than see what's happening as an opportunity for me to look at myself and expand, integrate something in myself. And would it be okay, Sean, if I gave a real life example of something that I really saw in myself over this past weekend?
yeah, of course.
Okay. So I'll just say for me, I think I am more hardwired to naturally partner with another than to partner with myself. It's, I'm a Libra South Node, which to me means that I've lived many lifetimes in partnership. I'm an Aries North Node, which means I'm learning to really partner with myself and to be more self sufficient, independent. So for me, the easier part is at least I think it is, but I'm finding there's gaps in what I'm able to do as well. But I feel the easier part is partnering with you than partnering with myself. And the path that I chose in this lifetime was to experience many, many, many decades of complete abandonment of myself, like complete abandonment of myself in every possible way. And I think this also occurred in other lifetimes. So when I had my awakening and when I went through my divorce, and I ended up spending a lot of time alone over the past several years before Sean and I came together, I was really working on this. I was really healing this, expanding this partnership with myself, this coming back to myself. And the biggest aspect of union with myself for me, it could be different for other people, but for me, it's about living in my truth, honoring the truth that arises in me, and where I think it's appropriate, lovingly, compassionately sharing my truth with other people in a highest and best way. So, what I have found challenging in our divine union with Sean is to really remain in divine union with myself. This has been very challenging for me. And I don't want to. I don't want to say I'm embarrassed, because that would be dishonoring myself. But my egoic presence does find this embarrassing, finds it embarrassing that this is the truth, finds it embarrassing to share this to the world. But it's the truth. The truth is, it has been challenging for me to remain in union with myself within our divine union. And I'll just give an example of this, because I have a sense that others might have the same challenges at times. So I want to share to know there's hope and that we can do this. So over the weekend, Sean and I had sort of a difficult interaction. I did something that I think was inconsiderate towards Sean. And I didn't mean to be inconsiderate. That was not my intention, but I do believe it was inconsiderate towards him. And then he expressed how he felt about it, and to me, it felt a bit severe. The express, not what was said, but just how it was said. And And the way I handled it was I'm still trying to figure out how to handle these situations. I'm still a humble student in this. I was trying to be love. I was trying to honor his experience. I was trying to share what my experience around it was, that there was no malintent. And I also was thinking maybe I'm supposed to just really try to hold peace in this situation. Maybe that's part of what I'm supposed to learn, is to how to really hold peace when there's conflict and it's quite difficult and it can feel a bit severe. And I ended up having a conversation with Sean's higher self. I was trying like all different ways to kind of move through this. So what happened was, as I was driving home, I had gone away for the weekend skiing with my kids. And as I was driving home, I ended up being pulled over by a policeman. And the policeman ended up giving me a summons to go to court because he said that I had not moved over into the left lane as I was passing him, as he was on the side of the road giving a ticket to someone else. And in my reality, this had not happened. I think maybe he had confused my car with another car, because as far as I remember, I was in the left lane the whole time, and I do not recall what he said happened. But regardless, he gave me this summons. And as I was driving away, I was very upset. And I tuned into what I was feeling, as I always try to do. And what I felt was unfairly accused. This was the energy I felt. And then I immediately was brought to how I was feeling around this situation with Sean. I think I felt sort of unfairly judged, I would say, or spoken to. And I'm not trying to at all criticize anything that Sean actually did. Everything is perfect. It's all catalyst. It's all for both of our growths. But what I realized was, I realized I didn't fully stand in my truth as I was trying to move through the situation. I realized to me, I had abandoned myself. I realized, to me, I did not honor what I was actually experiencing in the situation with Sean. And then I was holding the energy, and I called in another experience of feeling this. That's how I see it. And all of it is my own responsibility. It's my own creation. I did it. But what I can see very clearly is that I can have a tendency to abandon myself and not fully speak the truth of what I am experiencing. And what I realize it's around my fear of abandonment. That's what it's around. So I see all this, and it was very painful. I would say, one of my worst days I've ever had in my life yesterday, because of everything that happened. And I might start to cry here. I could see.
You okay?
Yeah. I could just see so clearly how I abandoned myself from my own fear of abandonment. And it was just very painful to see that. And then to also see sort of the events that happened afterwards, I think, due to the energy I was holding. So to me, it just felt like a real wake-up call to, again, recommit to not abandoning myself above all, to remain in union with myself above all, first and foremost, to be in integrity with myself above all. And to me, that's what the divine union with myself means, is that I will not turn away from myself. I will not abandon myself. I will not I will not speak my truth out of fear of abandonment from someone else. So to me, this is a big piece of union with oneself.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I see that that was hard. Appreciate your openness. Yeah, so I think that we will get to a place where we realize that a lot of our people pleasing was coming from a fear of abandonment. And then one of the sort of core things that we'll end up having to grieve in this process is the actual attachment to our partner as a maybe like a guiding principle, or a basically we'll start to realize that we're kind of giving we're attached to our partners in a way that somehow isn't quite healthy for us. And we'll do that. We'll manifest that in some way. Either we'll try to bend ourselves to be better suited to them, or what we think is better suited to them. Or we might, that's kind of the main thing is we'll do that, or we'll have sort of a desperation feeling around them, or, these different types of situations will occur, all to kind of show us that we're gonna experience disharmony when we are so attached to even our partner in that way. And at least on it can manifest in so many different ways, abandonment, or so many other ways. It could be something as simple as, for a long time I haven't been as open with my sharing because I felt that if I shared, people would leave. So it's been this sort of ongoing thing. Eventually you have to step into your power, and just basically be okay with whatever falls away or whatever happens from whatever you're saying or doing. Basically it starts to become, I think, very almost impossible to step aside from your principles, or from whatever principles are dear to you. And so what I'm hearing Tassel say is that basically honoring herself and not abandoning herself is a dear principle to her. So basically through these types of things, nothing that I said was trying to, of course, tell her what she was doing or tell her how to be. That was not my intention at all. So the person that's feeling that, when they feel that they're being sort of pushed to act a certain way or be a certain way, a lot of the times it's sort of that part of them that wants to people please a little, that kind of comes up and says, oh, I know what I can do to fix this. I can change how I am, or I can do these things. And that starts to feel kind of bad. And then we have these other things, or for example, Tassel mentioned that she felt sort of falsely accused, an accusatory type thing. I think part of the issue here in the communication at this type of stage is that Tassel and I lately seem to be speaking sort of different languages in some ways. And what ends up happening is this sort of degree of confusion between us, where I don't think either of us feel really heard. And eventually we get to a place where we feel heard, but then we're, I think, still not totally getting each other. So I think that the the main thing to focus on is noticing as well where we have, because we can basically honor ourselves to a degree where we're sort of considering something like moral relativism, where we're basically saying that I am the be all end all of all things, and I choose as I choose, and it's my right and free will to do so. And, it doesn't matter what happens to others. So that would be sort of the extreme side of, just honoring myself, right? Honoring my sovereignty to do as I please. And so there's a balance there for sure too. If we have a conscience, then we should be fine. If we already have a conscience and are sort of paying attention to that, then it should be okay. But the part of the whole thing is this idea that the other is doing what we perceive them to be doing in the moment is not usually quite what they're doing. So anyways, I don't know if any of that made any sense, but I'm just kind of rambling.
Yeah, no, I don't feel you were rambling. I think it was all very helpful. And I just want to say a few points leading off of some of the points you made, is that for me, and maybe this is common for divine feminines, I don't know. I'm curious what other divine feminines are experiencing. But for me, I think my default go-to orientation in relationship is to always try to make peace, is to always try to harmonize, is to always try to see the other person's point of view in a bit somewhat shelving my point of view to a certain degree, and just try to bring peace. And I feel the invitation here is, yes, that is very important. But the invitation is to also show up very authentically as oneself in one's own union with the principles that are very precious and very important to you, and to not abandon those. So I feel part of my growth is possibly to become more comfortable with, at times, if there is some conflict or tension, and that to not feel like so much pressure or so much desperation to make peace. I'm never trying to not make peace, but if the truth I'm bringing that feels very important to me does at times maybe create some challenge or some wobbling, that's okay. I can't not show up as my authentic self. I must show up as my authentic self. And then at the same time, these are all new learnings for me. At the same time, the relationship, we said this in an earlier stream, the relationship is the guide. You're not the guide. It's not your ego and its desires for what feels comfortable that is guiding the relationship. The relationship is guiding you. So the way I see it is, when Sean and I show up in our authentic selves, really embodying the principles that are most precious to us, that likely we are here to truly embody for the world and ourselves, and we can communicate in as loving a way as possible, I feel the highest and best path will emerge and will probably teach each of us and expand each of us in the way our soul is asking us to expand. So it's not Tassel or Sean that is leading the relationship at all. The relationship is its own entity. It's its own divine guide. The relationship is its own divine guide. And it is guiding us in our expansion, not us.
Yeah.
That's the way I see it.
Yeah, and I find it helpful to expand that concept just to make it a little simpler. Is that life guides us,
Yes,
you know,
exactly.
and so it's not so much the relationship itself. There, every aspect of our life is guiding us into various experiences, and whatever challenges arise are sort of challenges that are meant for us to look at. And it's all it's the creator that's doing this. Um, it's not there are no people here, really. I know it seems like there are, but there's consciousness emerging, and then we make stories of it because we feel that we are separate beings. And so that level of awareness is totally real, right? But if we step past it, we can realize that life is happening, and we're either sort of on board or we're not. And when we're not on board, we tend to cycle through the same types of things until we get the lesson. So if we can just view life or the relationship, but I think it's a little simpler to view life itself, like all moments. It becomes more all encompassing, and that way your spiritual development or growth isn't sort of relegated to the relationship only. Not that Tassel was implying that should be it. She wasn't saying that, but basically, the relationship is an aspect of life and an aspect of the plan for your evolution. And so whenever we feel anything that's hard, we are given an opportunity to try to traverse that with forgiveness and peace. And sometimes we're not able to do that very well. Sometimes we're able to do it really well. So it depends on sort of the depth of that wound that it's kind of hitting usually.
Yeah, and I would say another phrase that you and I have used that is life is the guru. Life is the guru. And I was someone who, in my earlier life, I would go to gurus. I would go to healers and psychics and gurus and really, in a way, trust what they said for my own life over my own guidance or over just observing what's happening in my life. And the way I see it now is not that I will never talk to healers or anything. Sometimes I do think it is helpful, and I still from time to time do that. But the way I see it now is when I'm in touch with my own guidance and I'm sort of reading my external reality and noticing what life is showing me, noticing what life is reflecting back to me. For instance, in the police car situation that I described earlier, I was really noticing, why do I think this happened? What is the lesson here for me? So I don't think we need external gurus. Life is our guru, following our own guidance and paying attention to what is being reflected back to us, but in our relationships and in situations that we are calling to us. What is there for me to see?
Yeah, that's an interesting point. So I have some things to share about gurus. So there is something to be said about immersing yourself in the aura of a guru. Depending on their level of consciousness and what they're emanating in their aura, and also their authenticity as a guru. There are many what you could call fallen gurus, which essentially they reach sort of spiritual highs, and then they are tempted back into pride and stuff like that, and start to amass followings and try to get their disciples to do things. It can get as far as sort of messianic narcissism. But A true guru calibrating somewhere in 700s or higher is going to be a very peaceful presence to sit with, and actually what they say to you doesn't matter so much. The consciousness in the student in that sort of environment is going to pick up a increase in field, a sort of magnetic pulling that pulls them inward. Kind of bubble, it's going to bubble up shadow basically just by being in proximity to this guru. So what we'll find with gurus is that usually when we try to find one, we're not totally ready for that lesson. Usually what'll happen is it'll just kind of fall into our lap when we're ready for a teacher. Somehow we could find it just through little tidbits, even on YouTube or books. Like, it doesn't have to be this profound travel across the country, big expedition. Really, all what we'll do is we'll start to call for higher consciousness teachings, because while we are our own guide, we also don't know what we don't know about reality, primarily about some of the spiritual truths that we haven't really noticed yet. And so there is something to be said for the being that's at a higher consciousness state at that moment, that's kind of offering some, I don't know what to call it, breadcrumbs on the path, here's some interesting bits of information. Ultimately, it is all mostly information. And this is why, we can't explain love really here. We can't explain God, because we're talking in a linear domain in this sort of place. We can't explain anything. But in nonlinear terms, we'll eventually have an experience of the nonlinear, non-dualistic love that we're always talking about. And it's not really until that experience where people totally get it. So prior to that, they start to establish things like courage and, self-empowerment and different things like that. And then later they have to let go of all that. So there's this sort of weird strengthening that happens of the self. The sense of self becomes much more empowered and much more sovereign feeling. And then later that too starts to get let go. So it really depends what stage people are at with, as far as how they follow their guidance and their lead life, and whether they should seek any information. There are stages up in, if you start to hit the void state of nothingness, then you should probably look for a teacher or ask for a teacher to show up, ask for some guidance, because that state can be troubling. It can be a challenging place to be, because it's feels irrelevant. Everything's irrelevant. So a lot of people mistake that for enlightenment, because it's quite peaceful when everything's irrelevant. So you want to move past that. So there are sort of, what you don't want to do, I guess, is just take everything that you've said, or that others say and somebody has taught, and just take it and be like, this is true. Basically run it through your guidance and all that stuff. Everything we say, everything you read. If it is a true guru, which there's only one calibrating over 850 right now. I think he's Brazilian, Baba Sri. I can't think of his name right now, but he's the only one alive right now that's calibrating up towards where Jesus was. He's not there yet, but so if you're in the presence of those gurus, you're going to be affected dramatically. But if they're not to that degree, then you're likely not going to experience the profundity of what's happening. So there are people like myself that are calibrating lower, probably 600s or somewhere like that, 550-ish, and that are not able to really emanate that aura the way that type of guru can. And so we have sort of, in my teaching, we'll have a sort of contextualization or intellectual conceptualization of some of the things we're trying to teach, the aura doesn't emanate it as much, so there's less understanding that comes from it. But it's still worthwhile to listen to some people and to do those things. Basically, do whatever you want. It's really the
Yeah, I think the point that I was making is my egoic mind was sort of searching outside of myself for guidance. And if just naturally a wonderful guru comes into your field, that's great. Life is your guru. Follow what's coming in, pay attention to what's coming in. But I just wanted to make the point that I don't think we have to egoically search outside of ourselves if it feels forced. If you feel a huge guidance and a huge draw to someone, that's wonderful. But not feeling like you have to do that you have to look outside of yourself for your enlightenment. I don't believe you do. I believe your guidance and what's coming in is just carrying you forward on your awakening path. You don't have to like force it in any way. It's happening. It's happening already. Just pay attention. Life is your guru. Pay attention to what you're experiencing. Pay attention to what you're feeling. We're all, every second that we're awake, we are on our path of awakening. There's opportunity at every second to be on our path. The path is now. The path is happening right now.
Yeah, Joe and Jamie and Debbie all said some excellent things too. So Joe said, actually Jamie and Joe basically said the same thing. They said that basically the gurus are many people, and Joe said each person I meet, I learn something about myself and take something from it. So even when you're in a teaching role and you're teaching a student, there's truly learning happening both ways. And Debbie said we're all both the students and the teachers, and that's exactly right. And Tassel said that seeking outside of ourselves for the true answers. Yeah, there is nothing outside of ourselves, so we won't find answers there. What we'll find is information. And
I love that it seems like these wonderful people on the chat are saying everyone is your guru, as you are your own guru, as you are a guru to them. We're learning, teaching, learning in every experience we have.
Yep.
And this was something that was really illustrated to me during my psychotherapy training, is that the more modernist traditional orientation of psychotherapy is so hierarchical. Like you go to a therapist and you sort of see them as an expert, and even as an expert in your life, and that the learning is all one way, like the therapist is just teaching you. And this doesn't resonate for me, and I don't feel it is the universal truth. In every single relationship, there is a teach, learn dynamic. There's the only hierarchy is artificially man-made. There is no hierarchy. And this is what we're learning as we, and more embodying as we move from the Piscean age, which was all about hierarchy, into the Aquarian age, which is about egalitarianism, and we're all equal and we're all learning from each other.
Yeah, and transparency as well.
Yes, and transparency as well.
And people when we say that the Aquarian age is going to be a transparent age, they misunderstand that. They misunderstand that. They kind of tend to think that means people will be more vocal and like will know what everyone thinks, and because they're more vocal, or secrets come out because people are speaking them. It's more accurately going to be that people are aware of the intentions behind things. As everyone starts to tune more into their sensitivities, they can, especially like basically you could think of it this way: as you heal anything in your egoic attachments or shadow or any of these areas in yourself that need healing, everyone has more or less the same woundings or very similar woundings, just manifested in all these differing experiences. And what ends up happening is you're able to see all of that in what's occurring. So when anybody's not acting in authenticity, when they're acting sort of in fear, it becomes pretty easy to see, and pretty easy to see what the probable roots around that are. And so what ends up happening though is a side effect of all of that is that everyone will be more or less BS or lie detectors in many ways walking around. So it's not so much necessarily that people will be super expressive, but expressions will be gauged in that moment for the intention. The essence of that expression will come through, and if the expression is fear-based, the other person's going to be like, this doesn't really seem true. So, and then there's a period of learning where everyone's learning how to do that. So basically, these are, you could call them psychic capacities, but it's not quite like that. But it's gonna start to be more and more transparent, and then eventually fully transparent, where there is no real need to speak at all. But
I love that. That sounds amazing.
yeah,
I,
yeah,
I want as much transparency as possible.
it's
That
good.
sounds
But
the best.
basically, it means that any secrets you think you have are not real. Um, they will come out eventually. And so it can be freaky for some people, I think, that this idea that all my dirty laundry will be out. That's actually part of the reason for the veiling, is to make it a little less traumatic here in some ways. Because if we could see everyone's dirty laundry all the time, we would think everyone's garbage people. So we would
Well, this is sorry, go ahead.
so basically, there's a reason that our internal, sometimes malicious intention, egoistic, thought patterns and things. There's a reason these don't get quickly transmuted to people, that they can hear it and that they can know that we're saying that. There's a reason that a lot of that is under the surface for now, because it would be very conflict heavy if, for example, when I say something, if Tassel has a minor inkling of, oh, I hate that, and I know that, like, that now makes conversation just hard. Even if she has just a very brief thing and then moves past it, it's kind of like, oh, ouch, right? So there's a part of the veiling that's there, that's part of the reason for it. There's a few reasons, but this is sort of a nice side effect of it, is that we don't have to look at things that are just really hurtful. What ends up happening, though, is some people get really excited by their ego and what their ego claims, and then they speak it, and that's when people feel hurt, because the ego makes a claim about something, then the person will say it, and then the other person feels either projected on or whatever's going on. Yeah.
Yes, what you just said is really interesting. And then at the same time, what it feels like is we are also all being invited to honor what arises in us, to accept it, to honor it, to love it, move it through us if necessary. But because as we enter this realm of more transparency, that is going to be, it's all going to be out. So I feel like part of the awakening process is this connection and honoring with what's inside of me, and not running away from it, and working to not feel shame around some aspects of it, which we might have been programmed to think are shameful. So I'm just wondering, do we have any more like concrete tips about staying in union with oneself, in divine union with self, and then tips for staying in divine union with each other?
So your divine union with yourself, if not explained, like, we should probably explain what that means. So, or what that means to me anyway, I'll explain. And then I think that will help. Basically, what it means is um, letting go of all egoic attachment and trusting the creator as you, divinity as you here. The divine part of you can't be threatened or can't be isn't possible to be fearful. So anything that we're acting out of fear, Tassel might call that abandoning ourselves. Basically, we're abandoning our divinity when we are acting out of fear. And I don't say that to criticize that activity. It's through abandoning our divinity that we realize we're doing that and turn back to it. So it's all perfect. But the divine union is the union with the higher self. It's union with the creator. But in order for that union to happen, all the baggage, all the shame and guilt and fear has to be let go of in some way. And this can happen in many years, or it can happen in a moment. It just takes a certain amount of unconditional love to flow through, and then all of that goes away. Love's a non-linear emotion, so it doesn't. It's not held by the mechanics of processing or time the way that we would like to presume it is. So the union is not with the ego. A lot of people get confused when they start to think about kind of honoring themselves and honoring their feelings. They can get, they've been told they're sovereign, and the ego loves all that stuff because it can say, I'm sovereign and I don't like this, therefore I put it into order. Which is just judgment, basically. So there's a lot of traps in that union for the ego to kind of try and grab hold again. And these temptations change as the consciousness level of the individual rises. And pride is always one that can pull you back. For example, there's also so basically the best way to find like a true union with yourself is to just pick a particular principle of divinity that you really resonate with, such as forgiveness, mercy, humility, grace, peace, love, these things, and just try to be that. Truth. So that's what I try to be, is just truth. And I experience a lot of problems in my life because I don't really bend too much from saying what my truth is. Now what I've come to notice, just as in the past weekend, as an example, I'm speaking from a different place when I'm expressing my Sean's egoistic feelings. I'm pretending, basically. I'm playing a game to express them because I thought Tassel wanted to hear them. So to me, and I think that this causes some confusion because it comes across that I am truly feeling the way that I've expressed. But I'm not usually truly feeling that way. Like I'm usually aware that this is a story I'm in. I'm in it because I'm expressing how I feel, how Sean feels, not how divinity feels. And so what I'm learning is that I shouldn't do that anymore. It's not helpful for me to sort of amplify the whispers of Sean's ego just to participate in these things. There's no real value there. All that it does seems to cause pain for people. So instead of doing that, I'm just not gonna get involved anymore in those types of things. There's a part of Sean that wants to make sure that the other person knows how he feels and all these things, and that's all just ego. So I don't really need to do that. And so this weekend was a big wake up call for me, as far as choosing when I put on that personality, and if that personality is you know upset, then what's gonna emerge is the personality's pain. And so this is a little bit confusing, probably for some people to hear. It might sound like a dissociative identity disorder or something, and it is a lot like that, actually. But that's probably what they would call it in a pathological way, or the pathology of it. That's probably what they would say. But it's I'm starting to see that I don't see value in expressing these concerns that Sean has. Basically, we've been doing this kind of surrendering practice, I guess, and it's been going really well. Um, and I think the universe is just showing me that I don't need to play in that anymore. I don't believe in his emotions really anymore. I let them flow. I honor them for what they are, but I see them for what they are also. So it's a differing stage that I'm at now, and this is sort of near where I was talking about with the void as well. So we have to be careful not to become detached. We want to remain non-attached, which just means we can experience the beautiful thing here and love it now, and then naturally let it fall away, which just means each moment arises and falls away, which is obviously natural of the entire creation, right? Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I feel, at least for me, my path is different than that. For me, I want to still be in my human. I think that's, for me at least, part of my incarnation is to be all of it, to be in my human, to be in my divinity. And for me, I feel that as I connect with my human's feelings, I'm learning just how to best express my human's feelings, and learning that in part with my relationship with you, for me, not to like avoid my human's feelings or sort of push it away, but to honor my human's feelings, and how can I best express my human's feelings to people around me when it's necessary. So I see it a bit differently. I believe I'm here to be in my divinity and to also be in my human, somewhat equally, or I don't know, it's probably different percentages at different times, but that's what I feel that we've been trying to work through. That's how I see it, is just how can our humans express themselves in ways that serve the relationship, that serve each other. That's how I see it.
Yeah.
And for me, at least, my preference would be to be able to connect with Sean and his feelings, and honor Sean and his feelings from my human tassel, as well as my divinity. So to me, I feel there's benefit in all of it. That's just my orientation.
They're okay. We have the same principles here. We agree entirely, but there comes a point where, for me, in my experience, and I believe this is a typical thing, there just comes a point where you realize that your emotions are opinions. their opinions that were empowered and then um, connected to or attached to in some way. They're all um, positionalities that are great, while they're useful to you. So they're perfect while they're useful, and there's nothing wrong with them. And so I'm never advocating people suppress or reject their emotions ever. And I'm not trying to suggest that that's what I'm doing. What I'm doing is observing it and noticing that it's not what I had perceived it to be before. Um, and wherever everyone's at is perfect. Um, Basically, like you said, there's a learning process of how to approach these things. I don't know how to approach uh, basically these weird negative feelings that Sean has without without speaking lies. Basically, um, I'm lying to myself when I'm in that state. So to me, it just feels a little um, it just, I don't see the value in it anymore for me. Um, I don't see a purpose to perpetuate it other than to just notice it, feel it, notice its root, and then give that to divinity as well. This is a slower way to do it. Um, but in order to maintain the Christed state, that's kind of the requirement. Emotionality and thinking as well will leave. So um, it's a it's different for, there are sort of levels to the perspective and perception of our emotions, our thoughts, our ego. When we're in fear states, or primarily in fear states, we are not even aware that we're basically acting almost entirely unconscious on autopilot in many ways. We're not even aware. And then later, so every step we go, if you just look at your journey, you'll notice that you get more and more insight, more aware of your own self, right? And then you realize that yourself is not real. And when that happens, this stuff just starts to become a little bit not so crucial to your experience, when the self is seen for what it truly is, which is just a garment that we wear to act and to experience in a duality type expression here. Yeah.
My feeling of Christ consciousness is at the very foundation just love. That is my understanding of Christ consciousness. And to me, I think we've said we can't quite really understand what love is, but I do think it can in some ways be seen as an emotion. I think that's, very limiting, a very limiting way to see it. I think it's much bigger than that. But to me, at least, embodying the Christ and Christ consciousness, in my understanding and on my trajectory, simply means being love, being love. That's it. It's very simple to me. It's being open-hearted. It could mean at times feeling pain and hurt in the world, as I do believe Jesus Christ did. But it's just being love, and it's that's to me what I see as my path of embodying Christ consciousness, is simply just being love.
Yeah, that's where I was as well. But what happens is, what Tassel thinks of love as is limited by the human limitations of nonlinear or linear sort of comprehension. So the only thing here is love. So we can't, this is why we're not able to define it in words, because it's everything here that is. Um, and so in order for us to embrace full pure love, we have to realize that what we thought love was isn't what it is. Um, it and you know, like I said, it's just different. It's just varying perspectives. It really doesn't matter if we're trying to be loving all the time. Then we're doing perfect. That's sort of what I was saying at the beginning. We pick, or earlier in the stream, we pick sort of whatever resonates with us: love, peace, kindness, grace, mercy, humility. Basically, the opposite of prideful, fearful states. Um, you know, if we just do that, then we will eventually start to glimpse what love is. Eventually, we'll get like glimpses of it. Um, and so it's the perfect pathway to do that, that way. And yeah, I would say, you know, obviously I wasn't with Jesus, uh, with his travels and his adventures, but I think a lot of the stuff that's in the Bible, I don't think a lot of that happened, but I don't know which part of it's fabricated and stuff, but uh, I there becomes a point in time where, like I said, the self is let go of, and this is why I start to refer to myself sometimes, or to Sean, in like a third person, because it becomes challenging to even speak properly. But the ideas that Sean has about stuff are not right. They're not they're not true. Like Sean, for example, if Sean thinks kindness is this, this, and this, you know, these particular types of expressing kindness. It's kind to buy your neighbor something, or to you know, to shovel your neighbor's driveway in the winter. It's a nice thing to, that's kind. You know, other people think it's kind to just mind your business. That's kind. So kindness itself is, just like any other expression, is sort of an opinion on what is kind, what is gentle, what is loving, what's peaceful. Um, and that as we sort of come into partnership with ourselves, we, at least in my case, I realized that I was partnering with my ego in many ways, and I had to let go of a lot of that.
Yeah.
So
And maybe I could jump in here.
sure.
I think the way I see it is, of course, every single precious being on this earth is in their own beautiful, perfect, unique stage of their awakening, which is perfect. And I don't see any hierarchy. We're all here in the perfect place that we intended to be. And to me, divine union with oneself just means I am in union with myself, however that is most authentic to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be a stage where you're maybe in union with your ego, because that's how you think of yourself, as your ego.
Mm-hmm.
And that's perfect. That is a union. And there could be different stages where you feel sort of differently about what your union is with, that it's more with my soul, or it's more with my higher self. But to me, at least, what I think is really important for us all on this beautiful path is to just come back to yourself in whatever way you define that for yourself at this moment in time of your soul's evolution. Just to be in partnership, in union with yourself, however you define it, is perfect. I personally think the greatest suffering, at least that I've experienced in this lifetime, is not being in union with myself, however I define that. That has been my greatest pain, my greatest suffering has been turning away from myself, which to me really means my truth, whatever my truth is, however I define it. It's my right to define myself and my truth. And so I would just say, for me, the definition of divine union is union with yourself in whatever way that is most true for you at this point in time in your soul's evolution.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's what I was trying to say. There are levels to it, and um, you know, when I'm talking about dissolution of the self, uh, that's there's nowhere else to go after that, right? So it's about the highest place to get to. So I'm never suggesting that that's should just be like everyone's goal. What I'm just trying to do is lay out the pathway that I've seen. So
Awesome. Does that seem like a good place to stop?
yeah. Debbie said something great as well. I just wanted to say, emotions are energy in motion. They're meant to be felt in the moment and move through the body. When we hold on to them, that's when we create stories, and and holding the emotions cause illness. Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. We don't want to hold on to the emotions ever. We want to just feel them and, do whatever we need to do to feel peaceful while we do that, if we can. Yeah, it does definitely, challenging emotions and storing them in the body manifest various types of illness. Totally. Thank you for sharing. So yeah, I think that's it. Again, we have that group on Thursday the 10th. Is it?
Yes, Thursday, March 10th is Thursday at 8 p.m. There is a link to register below, and it's on Twin Flames and Divine Union. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. Please subscribe to the channel. It really helps our work so that we can continue. And thank you all so much, and so much love in whatever way you define it. So much love to you.
I actually want to just give them all fear. Be afraid. No, I'm kidding. All right. Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Bye.